Germany, we're joined live by our correspondent Ira Spitzer. Ira, we know that there are some nerves, there are a lot of jitters going on at the moment, but why did this evacuation happen?
Well, we've recently heard from the Hanover chief of police, and he said that the match was canceled because of a credible bomb threat inside the stadium. We've also heard German media reporting that the threat came from Islamic extremists. We don't have any more information about exactly who those people might be, but of course, Europe on an absolute knife edge just 4 days after the devastating attacks in Paris that killed 129 people. And this match was supposed to be a show of solidarity. The German team itself, of course, was playing in Paris on the night of the attacks, and they wanted to go through with this match today. The Chancellor Merkel was supposed to be there, as well as other top ministers. But in the end, of course, everyone had to leave the stadium. They announced the closure about an hour and a half before the match was due to start on the loudspeakers. So the German Interior Minister is set to give a press conference very, very soon, and we'll expect to hear a little more about some details there.
Now, Ira, earlier today, 7 people were arrested in Germany, supposedly in connection to the French shooting. Are they still in custody or have they been released?
Those 7 people arrested earlier in Western Germany have apparently all been released. Initially, we heard reports that 3 of them were arrested in the town of Aachen, or near the town of Aachen, in some sort of connection to the Paris attacks and the massive manhunt going on right now in Europe for that 8th attacker. But later in the day, German authorities saying that there was no direct connection from those arrests to the Paris attacks. Of course, again, just underscoring how stressful, how tense the situation is in Germany and all around Europe right now with what's been happening in Paris.
Now, Ira, the manhunt for the suspects in the French terror attack continues and is spreading across Europe. Do we have any new information about the manhunts?
Yes, that manhunt, of course, going on all day. We don't. There is the latest is I believe they're still focusing on Belgium. The reports were initially that the arrests in Germany, that they maybe had thought initially that this was the person that they were looking for. However, again, that was proven not to be the case. That person did travel through Germany about a month ago, traveling from Germany to Austria, saying he was going on vacation to Vienna. This is in September. So there is perhaps a connection to Germany and other parts of Europe, but for now, Belgium remains the focus of that investigation.
Now, Ira, let's go back to the issue of the evacuation at the stadium. How exactly did it happen? Yes, you mentioned the fact that it was announced on the loudspeakers of a stadium, but what is the reaction from the people in the stadium, and was it packed to capacity?
No, luckily the stadium was not packed to capacity. This was about an hour and a half before the game, so there were just some fans trickling in, but it certainly wasn't full. It's a 48,000 person stadium. That would have been a much scarier scene. And just about an hour before that, there actually had been apparently a suitcase found, a suspicious looking suitcase that authorities had investigated and then determined to be safe, had reopened the stadium, and then what apparently was a credible bomb threat closed the stadium. But as I understand it, there were no scenes of tremendous panic coming out of the stadium because just not that many people were actually there yet, and authorities urging people to remain calm and to disperse from the stadium as soon as possible.
Now, Ira, it would seem that Germany is in a very high state of security consciousness, and across the country, no doubt, this security issue, and across Europe itself, the security issue would be there. How is this impacting on how Germany receives the issue of migrants coming into Europe?
Right. Of course, Germany known this entire year for its welcoming stance toward refugees, and even before those attacks in Paris, we'd see some of the rift in some members of the German government as well as the German public, and these attacks have definitely made some people think about the refugee flows coming into Europe. Of course, one of the attackers may have entered as a refugee through Greece before taking part in those horrific attacks. So here in Germany, yes. yes, immediately after the news of the attacks, one of the politicians from Chancellor Merkel's own party declaring that the Paris attacks were the moment when refugee policy would change, that this was a pivotal moment. Now, of course, there's been a reaction towards that, saying, the refugee issue and the terrorism issue are not connected at all. But it's really something that people here are talking about, looking at the Germany's refugee policy and perhaps making some changes. They were already in the process of tightening those rules, so we'll see if this has a real effect on that.
Now, Ira, before we let you go, just looking at the reaction from, for instance, Russia, reacting to sort of throwing sorties to Syria. With regards to that, we've seen Poland shutting down its borders. Is this the right reaction that is expected or is needed to ensure that the attacks stop happening in Europe, for instance? And what's the reaction from all the different EU leaders? We've seen President of the US, Barack Obama, coming out and saying that, hey, this is not the right way to do it. Let's speak, let's look at policy and so on. What needs to be done from EU leaders?
Yeah, well, we're seeing some different attitudes from the various EU countries. France, of course, stepping up those airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, bombing the Islamic State's capital of Raqqa in recent days. There was some talk here in Germany about Germany potentially providing more military assistance. Of course, any military action in Germany is very controversial, especially with the history of the 20th century. The German foreign minister today saying that airstrikes were actually not an option. Germany is part of the coalition, in the U.S.-led coalition in Iraq and Syria, but is not participating in airstrikes, doesn't have any plans to do that, but is supporting that coalition in other ways. So yeah, the Europeans are really looking at their military policy right now and trying to figure out what the right way forward is.
Well, thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to speed. That was our correspondent, Ira Spitzer.